Are you ready, kids?
Aye,
Dragon.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, Captain.
I gotta get a warm up. Alright. So, before we can get to the beginning, we must go to the very beginning. Back to when there was just a piece of rock in the sky. Long ago, there was a person, a small little goddess called Amara. She grew up, something happened to her, then she fell from the heavens and landed into the earth, forever imprisoned, forced to give life to all of us sad souls and the stuff, and the plants on earth. This part I'm making up. Not her being not her being in prison, though. Her being in prison, the earth is 100% true. According to the myth has it, when Amara was imprisoned in the planet, pieces of her majestic cloak scattered around the world, and where they landed, purple flowers grew. Thus, leading to this beautiful flower. Mind you, it's heavily broken. But yes. So, this is one of the only mythos that we have of Amara, of her coming down from the heavens and being imprisoned in the earth. We don't have much about Amara to go off of that besides that small mytho, but she does produce very beautiful, glitchy flowers. After she was in prison, after some time, she decided to create the plants and animals on Earth, and eventually us, the humans. When it comes to Talos, do you mind? We don't know a whole lot about Talos. His story is yet to be told, but we do know that Amara is the creator of all living stuff on Earth. Here you go. One of her favorite creations is the panda. That's said in another mytho that we get from Mika for one of the quests, where we have to go around touching the panda statues. You all remember that quest that we did, 50-some years ago. Basically, it just talked about how she made dingoes. And she also made other creatures of the earth. Around this time, more humans started to come around, and more stuff was made. It's assumed that one of the things that first started to pop up was the Desert Empire, which is from Ruler's Reach to Emerald Desert, out of that region. That's seeming to be around the first true civilization next to the Amarites that live in Amarite Forest, Sporewood, and Scarlet. However, those elves, I assume you considered elves, live a really long time. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of the people that we had to kill lived before the fracture, when the Desert Empire was starting to be made. As people started to expand more westwards, soon the city of Zenith was born, and technology mixed together with essence. What is essence? Essence is the thing that gives us all life. It's usually blue. It's pure. It gives us the power to be able to continue on, and it empowers every living thing in the world. Until the fracture, which then caused corrupted essence to merge together with the world with pure essence, thus causing an imbalance with the world. But how did we get to corrupted essence? Because we don't know, at least the people don't know at this time, what essence really is, or what corrupted essence is. This, we must go back to a small, middle-aged, young man in his 20s. His name is Sidion. Sidion was a farmer in the village of Galia, which is kind of ironic because Galia Village has survived all these centuries, even past the fracture. He lived in Galia Village, which is also right next to Galia Plains, which I was able to discover that fractured plains used to be called Galia Valley, or Galia Plains, whichever one you kind of enjoy talking about. But during that time, the city of Zenith grew more and more power, more into technology. They learned how to merge together essence and technology together, and also it seems that they learned how to merge pure essence with plants, thus leading to the laboratory that we find in the Naga Cave. There's a lot of experiments that are happening of someone doing something with pure essence and mixing it together with plant lives, creating really beautiful trees and plants. Thus, it seems like the city of Zenith was doing their own experiments at the time with Mother Nature. But, like all kingdoms, there becomes a hierarchy, and the city government starts to become more aggressive when it comes to keeping people in and keeping people out. So it becomes a they-them situation. The city government creates the Outlaw Grove, which is what is now known, but before, we don't really have a name for it, but it was originally the breadbasket, which thus fed the entire city of Zenith. However, the Galian people that lived in Galia Village, they couldn't really access that. They had to defend for themselves. They had to survive on their own. They had to grow their own food. They had to rely on the Zenithian army to protect them when there's ever a wolf attack or bandits attacking them. Eventually, they get fed up, and at one point in time, there is a huge fight in the middle of the night. Sidion gathers around with his fellow farmers, and there's a wolf attack, just absolutely shredding through the town, killing the livestock and chickens, and taking away people from their lives. After a very long, grueling fight throughout the day, throughout the night, dawn breaks, and Sidion, on top of a rock, is asked if he wants to lead the Galian village and the Galian people, to be able to lead them to prosperity. Thus, he turns to them and says, "You want me to lead? All I did was fend off a few wolves. Anyone would do it to protect their family, wouldn't they? I don't know anything about leading an army, but if it's what people want, if it's what's best for everyone, I will do the best I can." Thus, after gathering up his courage and recovering after a fight, he goes to Galian Plains, gathers all the village folks together, and he decrees this: "We cannot give up. Haven't you had enough of your wares pillaged by wolves and thieves? We cannot wait for Zenith's help. We must help ourselves. We'll make traps, we'll make weapons. I'll chop down an entire forest to build a wall if I have to. I will not stand idly for another day while children go hungry. I would rather die fighting than live in fear. Wouldn't you? And you? Wouldn't anyone?" After rallying up the village people, the Galian village decided to thrive more. It became a little bit more independent, despite still having to let the Zenithian government still reach the breadbasket, or the Outlaw Grove. After a while, Sidion decides to go out into the forest. There he meets the Amarites. The Amarites, at this time, were peaceful. They lived in the forest and they worshipped Amara, the person who started the story. They believed her to be the mother of creation, and had built temples throughout the centuries. There, Sidion meets the Mistress of Mercy, the opposite version of the Mistress of Mystery that we have now. He talks to her and says, "Amarites had an interesting nickname for you, the Mistress of Mercy. They say you've been healing them from the bog for centuries. I know that's impossible, but I did notice your essence wielding had curious qualities to it. It's darker somehow. How did that come to happen?" This is when Sidion's story changes, where he starts to rise to power. After learning about how the Amarites were able to have a deeper connection with Essence, he goes to Skysong Summit. There he finds a connection to the Mine Artifact. There it fills him full of inspiration. It makes him have a deeper connection with the essence of the world. When it comes to him first, and the essence flows from the grounds inside of him, he tells himself, "What's happening to me? I've never felt like this in my life. Is this essence? Is this the power it offers? Oh, I'm feeling like I'm flying, but my feet are still on the ground. The others, it doesn't like them like it does to me. It feels like it chose me above all else." Then it kind of goes a little crazy from there. After gaining even more power, it's because of the Mine Artifact, he raises Galia Village up even higher, becoming even more independent from the city. We don't know exactly when it happened, but between his rising to power and expanding more northwards, making even more places to live in Fractured Plains, he goes to the coastal region, where at the time there's a thriving market stall that was happening, where they would trade with the continent to other lands, which we don't know of. There he finds the second artifact, the Primal Artifact. There he learns that it imbued him with the power to control the seas themselves. After gaining even more power, the Desert Empire decided to take notice. Even though they did business with the city of Zenith, they decided it was a good idea if they made friends with these Galian people. There, Sidion meets the leader of the Desert Empire, And together, from my understanding, is this touchstone is supposed to be in Ramshackle. As there's other NPCs that have talked about how Ramshackle, due to its technology, is a mixture of Zenithian technology and the Desert Empire's technology. There, he meets with the ruler of the Desert Empire, and he says, "Have we finally come to an agreement then? I, Sidion, leader of the Zenithian faction, will agree to a truce now and forever with the Desert Empire. We'll together establish a new research post here to study the curious, violent essence you have here, and enhance our shared knowledge of its secrets. May our alliance be long and fruitful." Though, like all things, it never lasts. Thus, leading him raising an army and fighting against the Desert Empire. On the last stretch to the ruler's reach to take the throne, he says to his army, "Knights, Sirens, Centurions, the path towards immortality begins here. I, who have gathered the 3 artifacts, will regain and bring eternal peace to these lands. Are you with me? Can you feel the essence on our side? And let us stand tall, so that even the gods cower in their shadow." For Sidion has learned, he's discovered, or thought, that if he gathered all 3 artifacts at the time, which the last one he needed was the creation artifact, if he did a ritual, he would be able to become immortal for all times, to be able to, quote-unquote, protect his people. However, at this point, the artifacts were too strong for him. They started to corrupt his mind with all the essence that poured into him, making him even more powerful. He then, after taking over Ruler's Reach and overthrowing the Desert Empire, he takes the army to take over the rest of the land. He marches north to the coastal regions, he burns down the ships, says the cannonballs have no effect against me, and that I will burn your city to the ground. He marches on forwards. He already controlled the city of Zenith somehow, but then he marches south to the forest where the Amarites are. Though he took a liking to them because they helped him when he was first starting off. So he gave them a threat, saying, "You cannot run, Amarites. You cannot defeat me with your tricks. If you hide in the trees, we'll raise your forest. If you stalk in the shadows, we'll light you aflame. You will now and forever have freedom of choice in my kingdom. But if a single splinter of wood fled from your woods towards my men, I know that you have chosen death." After finally taking over the rest of the world, all the rest of the continent, Sidion assumes his throne and waits. As the coming years pass by, Sidion's old age, from my understandings, decided to take over. There he decides to himself that it's time to become the immortal king that he really is. He tells the servants, "Someone prepare my immortal body. This one won't be suitable for the world to come. Yes, get all the pieces into place, with the purification stones set around the communion circle." With all 3 purification stones and all 3 artifacts together, the ritual can begin. However, the ritual goes haywire, and something happens to him. This leading to Sidion uttering the last words, "Talos, Amara, I will tear you both apart with my hands. For this, I am the chosen one. I am the one who will protect this land. I cannot be defeated. Your essence is mine to control. This power will be under my control. Mine. Ah!" And then we don't know what happened to him. The theory is that his body disintegrated during the ritual, but his soul lived on through the essence, being able to still mix around. But what happened to his soul, we don't know yet. It's a story that's just to be told. But we do know one thing. Because of this ritual, with the artifacts, corrupted essence poured out of the land and contaminated everything in sight, thus causing Ruler's Reach to be ground zero and turning all humans to dust or transforming them into horrible monsters. And this we got to call the Fracture, which this led to the downfall of the entire continent, which then led to Zenith being the last city, after closing its walls up and never to be heard from again until around 65 years later, according to some sources. 65 years have passed, and a lot of stuff has gone down. Like, the housing market has just crashed. That's how bad it's gotten. However, the city decides to open up after the Fracture decided to reset and go back towards the desert. So Fractured Plains was one of the first regions that started to open back up more. Thus, we don't have as powerful as monsters anymore. We do have the Berserker Sylphilids, but they're not as prevalent compared to other regions. However, the fracture did claim a lot of people. Like I said before, they didn't all die. The Sylphilids transformed due to corrupted essence. Thus, one of the reasons why the city closed its gates after the fracture, because at the moment they didn't know what corrupted essence was. So they decided that anyone that was corrupted or might be corrupted, they exiled them out of the village because of people turning into Sylphilids and other monsters, thus leading to the faction, the Exiled, which most of them left to other distant lands, and the faction that stayed decided to take up arms and prepare themselves to fight against the city and overthrow it someday, because they kicked out their own people and didn't help them when they could have. At least that's what they say. We don't know a whole lot about Lyra. The only things that we do know about Lyra is Lyra was a scientist for the city of Zenith. Though some sources, which may or may not be true, one source says that Lyra was a daughter of refugees that came from the Desert Empire, and she was raised up in city slums. Thus, over time, she grew up, got more smarter, got more powerful, and the city government took a liking to her, thus giving her the role of lead scientist. Another source says from Amani, a quest, it says that she shouldn't have ever saved her, though we don't know exactly what that means. So we don't have an origin story for Lyra like we do for Sidion yet. They have yet to give that out, or they have yet to confirm what's already out there. What we do know is, after Lyra became the head scientist, Zenith at the time didn't really have an army anymore. At least they didn't have a strong army. If you ever make a new character, there's a brand new cutscene that shows up. It shows people fighting against the Soulless, other humanoid creatures that have been turned, either by Sidion or by the corruption. And those people weren't strong enough. And the city government didn't really have an army. Thus, they decided to start taking in refugees from the desert, forcing them to live in the city slums, where they could possibly have a better life. Though, on one condition. Not only was it just families, but it was also us. At one point in time, though we don't have memory of it, we went to the city from the desert. Thus, not really us, but earlier people. Lyra says in a touchstone, "Are those the new cursed recruits from the desert?" Yes, those are the ones most interest to me. They'll have the most exposure to corruption, after all. They are perfect candidates for the Ether Disc project. What is the Ether Disc project? Well, it allows us to open up our GUI. It allows us to use stronger abilities. Since we had corruption inside of us, it also is what saved us from possibly turning into creatures, or losing our minds, like most people did. So, thanks to Lyra, we all get to live. It's just, the only downside is that we now have to serve the city, though we don't have any knowledge of it. But there is one thing that we know of, is when we go to the academy with a new character, Raskin talks about how Marcus and Ellie are the only two people that actually kind of like us. Mainly because, as the time that the city was isolated, anyone that became cursed or corrupted, they were basically shunned. No one really liked them at all. However, because the city needed the army, we got taken in. So we got mixed with the people that were already in the city, and the people from the Desert Empire. After some time, the Ether Disc project was done and planted inside of us, and for the most part, our story begins at the academy now. However, Lyra has been doing stuff behind the scenes. The main thing is something Lyra was doing at the time made the city decide to banish her, or at least they tried to. One of the first people that tried to report Lyra was Mika. This touchstone is in the underside, and it says from Mika, "What's that? Is someone there? The archives are closed. You there, I see you. Turn around. Keep your hands where I can see them." "Oh, Doctor, I'm sorry, Lyra. I thought you were an intruder. You must have had a long day at the office to be here so late." Though we don't really know what Lyra did at the time, what we do know is that Lyra left the city on her own accord to get prepared for something, thus leading Mika to become, well, used to become our commander. She kind of becomes our field agent, field commander, but Raskin is the one that trains us now with the new lore that they did for the tutorial. But as we're going through the academy, being raised up from little kids, little snot-nosed brats, Lyra has been exiled from the city and starts out her plan to take over. So this is when we get into basically spoilers for the entire brand new lore. If any of you guys have not made a new character yet, or been saving it for Cyber Ninja, basically, Lyra goes to the Exiled and seeks their help, which then, after getting enough help, they launch an attack on the Academy, and they kidnap Marcus and Ellie, and then they try to kidnap us, but Raskin saved us. Thus, leading to our adventure of Fractured Plains, where we have to go through, find crystals, and open up to the lab to figure out where the Exiled have gone. Though the Exiled are in Galia Valley, the place that used to be their home at one point, until the fracture. And then the city just didn't help them. So Lyra teams up with them, and she starts to take over. Thus, during a cutscene, she basically says, a new wave of humans is coming. And the people that control the essence will be the ones in control. Lyra decides to herself that she wants to find the exiled people, make them into something better, at least make us into something better, and create a new human race to take over. Though, at the time of the cutscene, we don't know why she's doing it. We just know that she wants to do something with us, or something with the people of the city, and create a new form of humans. Lyra, though, goes to the forest, where she meets the Riovu. Now, the Riovu are Amarite people, despite mix-ups of people getting them confused. The Amorite people are the Zenithians and the Riovu. And according to Drift and Mika, they've been at a civil war for decades. We don't know exactly why the civil war started, and not for sure how long it's been going. I would think that it had to deal with around the fracture times when everything was just going crazy. But she turns to the Riovu and says, if you help me out, I will make you gain power beyond your belief. Thus, her saying to the Riovu people, I want your ears, not your head. If I want to fight, we can do that. And I will lock you and your little friends in a place and let you live out your long lives in prison of flesh and blood. Or we could help each other. I could share my powers with you, and you could end your pathetic war with the Zenithian Amarites, or whatever other trite thing you can imagine. Though, something I forgot to mention is she also got another faction to help her. She got the cultists, which basically Shin clones. So the Shin clones, or the cultists, were people that didn't know about Sidion, but they still believed that he was a god in some sort, due to a bunch of rumors and mythos that have been passed on throughout the centuries. So they worshipped him as a god, even though we don't know if Sidion's alive or not, through essence or not. So with the cultist's help, Lyra goes to Skysong. She takes over Obsidian Fortress, but at the time it had people like Finch, who were people that like to study essence. Skysong and Obsidian Fortress became a central hub after the fracture, where they would study essence that flowed from the ground. As Truce said, when you enter Skysong, it's one of the best places to go because of a bunch of natural essence that just pours out from the ground like a spring. After going there, she finds the first artifact, or at least we believe she does, which is the Mind Artifact, and takes over, or at least talks to it to try to gain power from it. Though, as she left to go north to the coastal regions, she leaves the cultists in charge of the Mind Artifact, thus leading to us having to overthrow the cultists as they were trying to corrupt the artifact to be able to control other people's minds. As we hear from Prim, the Elder, where she says that we must stop them because they're messing with the artifact's power to, I guess, influence people, is the main thing. So it seems that the Mind Artifact was one of the most powerful objects, as it can just straight up control humans' minds, but also empower you with a bunch of essence. So as we go on, Lyra goes to the coastal region, where at the time, thanks to the fracture, there wasn't really much left of the coastal regions. Thus, at one point in time, Kai and his brother Ichiro came as pirates and took over the coastal region. There, Ichiro and Kai settled down, and with the pirates' help, they helped keep the city running for the coastal, thus allowing trade to still happen with the city. Though, Lyra decided to make an offer to the pirates. She says to them, "What do you pirates say we make a little deal, I have something quite special I can offer." "Oh, you're already been in need. Oh, you don't want to give the specifics? You're fine just agreeing to help. Well, okay. That makes things easier then. You'll be very rich very soon." And with that, she also offers Ichiro something, the king of the pirates. Though we don't know exactly what Ichiro was offered. According to the lore server that plugin time, join the Legends of Zenith Discord server if you want to dive deeper into the story of the lore. There you can help read, gather, and or read my horrible grammar, because God forbid I cannot English at all. Plugin's over. So she offers Ichiro something, the king of the pirates, something I should have talked about before for the Skysong part. There's something called ward keys, which after the fracture and the artifacts were rediscovered and placed back in the correct locations, a force field was made to protect the artifacts from outsiders. Thus, when Lyra took over, she broke the ward key for the Obsidian Fortress dungeon, which is called Forsaken Requiem. There, we have to remake it in Skysong to be able to access that dungeon. Then, going back to the coastal regions, Lyra needed another ward key to access Seething Depths and Radiant Coast, because there was also another force field there, protecting that artifact. So she finds Ichiro to be able to give her the ward key to be able to access the artifact. Not for sure between what happened after Ichiro helped out Lyra and Lyra got her access to the artifact, but it seems using the primal artifact, not only can you control the seas, you can also transform people into sharks, thus leading some pirates to become the sharks that we find in Radiant Coast and Turtletop. So they were also once human. But another human that was corrupted by it was Ichiro, Kai's brother. There's a touchstone that I believe should be in the game, because there's a duplicate of the other touchstone. What this touchstone says is between the conversations of Kai talking to his brother Ichiro, and Kai is very worried, because at this moment, there's pirates are just prowling the city and scaring the heck out of all of the residents there. He talks to his brother saying, "Ichiro, you've been acting odd. Normally I wouldn't say anything, but the city needs you right now. Those pirates are scaring the crap out of everyone. You can't just disappear on people. Everyone here looks up to you. I look up to you, you know? I know you don't want my advice. You said it before, but leaders don't leave. They stay and they fight." Ichiro, protecting his brother Kai, has left Kai in the dark of everything. So after Ichiro disappears, due to being corrupted, and eventually his mind turns, and his body also transforms into the giant shark boss that has probably killed many of us before on our first playthrough. Thus, Kai becomes the new leader of Radiant Coast, though it's still full of pirates. But all he believes is that he's on his own, and that no one's here to help him. Until we go to the coastal regions after Lyra to keep chasing after her. There, Kai's like, "Oh, thank God, the city sent someone to talk to you." "Oh, they didn't, they sent some soldier." "What am I, chopped liver?" So, we decide to help Kai. We turn off a few things, we kill a few pirates, a few sharks, and then we discover that one of the shark pirates has the ward key, and another one has a ward key. So we have to kill both of them for the ward key. But of course, nothing can be that simple, and the ward key has no power. We have to refuse it to be able to take down the barrier protecting Seething Depths. Thus, we go to Tangled Cove. Tangled Cove is one of the most unique regions in the game. Thus, because of Truce telling, is the desert people migrated at some point and created the huge temples that were there. Two different temples there. There is the Shrine of Storms, and I believe it's the Shrine of Seas. But both of those places of temples we have to go visit to be able to empower the ward key and the natural essence that flows from there, to be able to access Seething Depths. After we're done with Tangled Cove and power up the ward key, we return back to Kai, we kick some more pirate butt, we open up the barrier, and we go and gather something with the artifacts. Though, the artifacts are really weird because we don't actually handle any artifact. We handle something that communicates with said artifact, which then makes the whole artifacts really confusing. But I progress, that's a story for another day. Though, I do want to say this, because it is kind of sad. Though not a whole lot of people know about Ichiro's death, when there is a touchstone that, when we do find this touchstone, Kai basically is shocked that his brother is still alive. He says, "What do you mean he's dead? He can't be dead. He's the leader of this place. If he's not the leader of this place, oh heck, I can't be the leader of this place. Are you kidding me? This can't be happening. Someone get my brother in here. He won't stand for, oh dang it. Dead. Brother's dead. Well, at least we think he's dead. Because according to Kai, after we do kill Ichiro is still alive, but he's still in shark form. So Kai has to figure out how to use the primal artifact to transform his brother back to his brother. But we don't have time for that. We still have to track down Lyra as she's heading towards the Emerald Desert to be able to get the third artifact. The third artifact. Lyra, way ahead of us, goes to Emerald Desert where Amani is. For we don't really know how they know each other, but Amani and Lyra know each other. It seems that Amani is actually descendants of the family that protected the people of the Desert Empire. So she tries to talk Lyra out of this. It's crazy. She doesn't know what the heck's going on. But Lyra wants to protect her, saying, I know what this kingdom needs better than anyone else. I can do what Sidion did wrong. I was chosen for this. You of all people should understand what that means. So stay out of my way. Don't be foolish and try to stop me, Amara. I hate for another life to be lost in the desert. There, due to Lyra's presence with the cultists, and then realizing that she needs even more manpower, the giant hourglass that is actually in Emerald Desert, according to the questline, that is the machine that created at least most of the robots that we have to fight around the palace. Because at the time, those robots protected the people, at least protected them from the creatures that were already corrupted, until Lyra got there. And whatever she did caused the robots to be corrupted as well. This leading to Amani's running for her life and hiding in one of the stalls in the old Emerald Palace. Basically telling herself, why do we make these automatons? Hopefully they don't find me in here. Thank goodness our people here are such loons about stalls. This one is big enough to hold 2 of me, at least. Oh, it's been signed by one of our artisans. Thank you, ancient sharkkeeper. You saved a life today. But then, Amari's stuck in Emerald Desert as Lyra continues on to Ruler's Reach with the third artifact in tow, along with the last ward key. There, inside of Queen's Path, she breaks the key, saying to herself, I should break this key, shatter it to the winds, but I hate to see another thing in this kingdom be destroyed. After all, whatever cursed soul inherits this land next deserves a chance to come after me. The queen is dead. Long live the queen. We don't really have much of an ending story for Lyra yet. We don't know if she succeeded to where she wanted to or not, and we don't know how far she got with the artifacts. We just have this last touchstone from Lyra found at the very tip of a rock in Ruler's Reach. There it says, I will succeed where the old kings and queens failed. My ancestors, the royals, even Sidion, they were all stepping stones for this moment, for me to achieve my destiny as the true heir to this world. And after that, we don't know what happened to Lyra. The only thing that we have to go off is we found the ward key, and we were able to re-empower it through Ruler's Reach, and go to the last dungeon, which then allowed us to do the last attunement quest, and that's where it leads to the endgame, or the Celestial Throne. That's about it for Lyra's story, at least for now anyways. That basically wraps up this lore lesson, besides the Q&A from the Survey Monkey. So if any of you guys have questions first, I'll take your guys' questions before I get to the survey questions.
Yay, thank you.
Yay. Thank you. Very helpful.
Do we know whether it was Lyra or Sidion or someone else entirely that created the big giant arbor root?
And why?
World boss is weird because the world boss, despite being a world boss, there isn't anything really on him. Even his items don't really give us much. Ever-growing essence of Amara. Utilized to create a legendary equipment, essence pulses angrily to the touch, desperate to return to its master. So, not really for sure exactly, but I kind of think, going off of the endgame, is that Nameless from the Garden Raid is actually similar to Arborat. The text for Nameless basically says every week, when it was a weekly quest, that the Nameless would respawn, which is also really funny because we technically spawn the boss. Because we connect all the water pipes together to feed the big center tree, thus spawning Nameless. So, PSA, don't fix the pipes.
It might also be worth noting that the raid name didn't used to be Defiled Guardians. It used to be Arboretum, which is very close to Arboret.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
They changed it, I think, in a public PTR before it went live, but it was Arboretum, then Arboret, so maybe he just fell out of the sky, and because there's so much essence in here, that he got really, really, really big, and he's actually one of the Ents, ready to take revenge on us for killing him so many times in the raid.
I like it.
Well, I guess now that I think about it, the item that he drops does match, Nameless, and how it's desperate to return to its master. So it's like, I guess this returns to Arborat. So another PSA, don't make the legendary weapons, because then they'll just return back. Well, no, do make them. Because then the world boss spawns again, and we don't want that. Yes.
Where did they come, the fallen foes, fallen friends, you know?
Ah, good question. The true answer is under NDA, so I can't talk about that. However, it seems that they are, like, some type of technology. Because in the agent rank, the pet you get there is called the Precursor Fallen Friend, and it doesn't have, like, any features to it. So my guess is the Fallen Friends, the Fallen Foes, and the Dazzling Fallen Friends are just a version of being able to, like, transform the Precursor into those versions. Which would then make the Precursor really cool if he could turn into a Fallen Foe to be able to attack for us.
Never mind.
Any other questions?
Why do we fight clones of Shin in this game? Are they
Because
any lore
Shin
for that?
is truly evil.
Ah.
The only reason why we do hunting quests for Shin is because Shin is using the stuff that we get, because technically we gather the monster pieces, but then what are those monster pieces used for? They're used to create weapons and armor. So we're helping cultists become stronger because we're giving Shin equipment to make this stuff. So PSA, don't help Shin.
I don't buy that.
It
seems perfectly nice.
Shin was a cultist at one point, but he broke away to help the city, possibly meeting Mika, because according to some people, Mika's, attractive, but c'est la vie.
Wait, what?
I've got one more question.
Yes.
Like all the enemies we fight, so they're all humans? Because we have different kinds?
So, very good question. Because not all of them are human. The Sylphilids are human, even the ones that we fight in Infernal Core. Because just going off of the website. The Naga, though, I believe, because I believe they came from the desert, they changed up the quest dialogue, so it makes this a little bit harder to say it's true or not. But when we go to Galia Valley the first time with an older character, Mika says, this is weird, normally we can hear horse carts and chickens. Thus meaning, there might be animals from our world in Zenith. So, it wouldn't really be too much of a stretch to say that Naga were actually once snakes, that due to corrupted essence, they turned into Naga. Because snakes in general are intelligent creatures.
Makes sense.
So, them turning into Naga just doesn't surprise me. The thing that is a little bit confusing due to the new lore is, before 1.2, like going to Fractured Plains, Lyra is in control of the Exiled, but I could honestly bet money, Lyra does not have the ability to control the Naga in the laboratory. Because it seems like if the laboratory was accessible, Mika would have been able to access it a long time ago. Because according to the Sins of the Father quest, Mika has sent in multiple drones to be able to scout it out. And when you return, she basically talks about how there is a laboratory in there, but we cleared it out for her. But we don't know like anything else after that. There are elementals though. Gargoyles, I would think, are technically elementals, spawning mainly from Skysong because of just how much pure essence are there. So thus making gargoyles be a rock elemental. There's also fire elementals, pyromancers in the desert that shoot fireballs that kind of look like snakes. But then there's also the water elementals in Tangled Cove, for example, which would then make even more sense because Tangled Cove is basically another hotspot for pure essence just pouring out. But then there's also like dead elementals for water, because there's a event in Emerald Desert which basically has a dried up version of water elemental being mixed with more corrupted essence. Yes.
Yeah. What's this? Is there much story behind Amara's tears?
Yeah, there is. If you hover over the item, it basically says something along the lines of something that was used to offer up to Amara, though we don't really know what it's for. It says for us it's an ether disc upgrade to give us more stamina, but it seems that those are just some material like a essence crystal that's just like kind of more pure that we offer up back to Amara.
Okay. I've got one more maybe.
Yes.
How is it that the pets and everything are not affected with like the evil essence?
All right, yeah.
That's a good question. And the only answer I have for you is plot armor. However, there is a theory I like to think about for Pandals. And this is kind of a stretch, because there's not a whole lot on them besides one of the side quests. I believe the reason why when you summon a Pandal, that the size of the summoning Pandal is the same size as the statues in the forest regions, like in Scarlet Vale. So, the ones that we capture, the reason why they're small isn't because of the design choice. It's because during the fracture, the Pandals broke their soul apart, thus leading to us having to capture so many of them to remend their soul back together. But that's a stretch of fan lore, but it's very interesting to think about.
Down. Okay.
And you're gonna answer some of the Survey Monkey questions now?
Yep.
Yay, okay.
Let's see. Exactly how is Amara World Boss such important and cranky? Is such an important and cranky world boss? What exactly are the fallen entities and why they shape like origami fortune tellers? What is the giant skull and turtle top? Why is there an abandoned ship in Radiant Coast? All very important questions. The first part, Amara is just angry because he is. I mean, we kill him so many times, and you know how he is. Like, he gets messed with almost every single update. So he is pretty cranky because none of his stuff works sometimes. Fallen entities I can't really talk about, but the main thing is that Zenith now has Dungeons and Dragons, so please capture the fallen friends to use for aid cycles. The giant skull and turtle top has always been an interesting one, because there's not a whole lot to go off of it. There's not a whole lot of region lore for turtle top, and going around the island where the skull's attached to, it doesn't really make much of like a turtle shape. But my guess, because we don't know much about the outside of our continent, is that it could be like the water turtles from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Have you guys seen that? Where they would have, you know, large pieces of land on top of their backs, and they would travel across the ocean. But there's not a whole lot that we can go off of. The abandoned ship in Radiant Coast more than likely is a pirate ship, unless you're talking about the ones that are rusted, which more than likely were the ones that were destroyed when Sidion took over the coastal region. But the one that is parked, more than likely is the one that belonged to the pirates, considering that whole ribcage looking area is just full of them. This one's a very interesting one. Why do mages have ability to summon their spells? Doing a little bit of research, because when I first started this game, I thought mana was for everyone, but it's not true. So, my best guess for why mages can summon spells is, one, because there is elemental magic in the game, and two, the skills that Blade Masters have, we have a rage bar. It's not mana. So, my guess is that when you see like the special effects from like an ultimate or like Vocal Strike, more than likely it's like not actually a thing, and we're just straight up just swinging a sword. So like if anyone's seen like Demon Slayer, it has like all those special effects for like water breathing. Yeah, there's not actually like flames or water coming off of the sword. It's just straight up special effects. They don't really have like much power besides like straight up physical power. How come we haven't turned bad? And what's really the thing stopping us from getting corrupted? Just can't be our morals. Thanks, Mystic. Basically, the long story short is because of the Ether Disc. My guess is that thanks to Lyra implanting it inside of us, we actually had a natural resistance, even more to corrupted essence. Since we're refugees from the desert, and we couldn't really go anywhere, like it kind of became like survival of the fittest. So the people who turned into monsters or died from monsters, they died, but the people who lived on got somewhat of a more resistance towards corrupted essence, thus leading to us being able to go through the desert and fight back the corrupted monsters for Amani to continue on. Because according to Amani, she couldn't take back the desert because of how potent the corruption was, but with us, we could, because we had a natural resistance to it. This question basically says, what is the Zenithian government structure? I have no idea, but if any of you guys understand politics and you have an idea for how the Zenithian's government structure should be, join the server, give your fan lore there. I would love to hear about it. What separates Sidion from the player once they have all the artifacts? The only thing I can think about is when I look at the item descriptions for the artifacts, they're not really artifacts. Well, like the true artifacts, they're something that connects us to the artifacts. So we don't even touch the artifacts that Sidion did long ago, is probably like the only thing that I can think of. My guess is we actually go back in time. Like, raids are different, but for instance dungeons, honestly, reading the quest lines, it almost feels like we go back in time to take back the corruption and like completely purge it from the artifact. It's really cool. But basically, Sidion had all the artifacts, and we didn't have all the artifacts, because he was using all three of them at once. What is the curse our characters are afflicted with? Basically, corrupted essence, because we're refugees. Class lore? There's not a whole lot about class lore. It would take some looking into like all of the skills and godstones and modifiers to see if I can get even close. So there's not a whole lot there. Class lore at the moment, like especially with the new class Cyber Ninja coming out, I'm gonna just kind of chalk that up to more fan lore. So if you have an idea about classes for like how Blade Masters works or how Essence Mages work, please feel free to share. I honestly thought at one point in time, the reason why Essence Mages were able to use magic was because they had tubing inside their arms. So the tubing would direct the corrupted essence, and it would be transformed with the Ether Disc, go through the tubing of our hands, and that's the reason why you can do spells without using your blasters. So it's, you know, again, fan lore. What's the most eventful, important, epic, if any, battle war that took place in the world of Zenith? That's kind of just up to you guys. The main thing is probably the Fracture, because the Fracture was a mixture of Sidion being corrupted, but was also part of him taking over the rest of the world, well, the rest of the continent. The gym in Obsidian Fortress used for anything? Is Lyra currently still developing the Ether Disc project? Is the water in the underside drinkable? Very important question. So, is the gym in Obsidian Fortress used for anything? It depends on which gym this person's talking about. The giant wolf that we have, my guess is that it's just straight up an essence crystal that's been turned into a dog statue. Which is then weird because we don't technically have dogs in the game. Unless you want to count the essence pup, but
I heard that was a developer's real dog. Is that true?
I'm not for sure. That's a good thing to ask. I do have like a whole list that I want to give them with the survey. Lyra is currently stopped developing the Ether Disc project because we're here. We're playing the game. Basically, she can't really continue the Ether Disc project when she's either dead or, you know, is banished from the city. Which does bring up a weird thing. Judging by touchstone positions when doing research, the last touchstone I gave on Lyra is on top of a, you know, giant rock in the sky in Ruler's Reach. And I didn't do it justice, but if you listen to that touchstone, it almost sounds like Lyra is defeated because she couldn't handle or use the artifact's power to be able to take back her land. Which is something I forgot to mention because we don't have an origin story on Lyra, is Lyra seems to be the last descendant of the Emerald Desert Empire. So she's the true leader of it, and because the city didn't bother to help her people, at least according to her, she took vengeance on the city. There's a few touchstones that didn't make it into the game that give a lot more insight about Lyra's past and also about Sidion, which is really good to listen. I have more of those in the Google Drive that I have. Oh, 2 more questions. Where are the dang Pandals? So, here's where the Pandals are. You have the Celestial Throne. You have the fast travel with like the giant door with the rock. Oh, with the red rock. You have the giant floating orb that's basically holding up the entire throne from what it looks like. Pandals are at the very top of that, where all the buildings are that we can kind of see. There's literally a Pandal village, so if you can somehow get up there now, you would be literally massacring multiple Pandal generations. So please do not disrupt the Pandal sanctuary. The devs worked hard on that. And then the very last question: what is the Celestial Throne? The Celestial Throne is basically a giant throne called the Castle of Dangerous. Thank you. Where the rulers of the Desert Empire lived, and it's also really confusing because technically all 3 raids are in the throne, but you go from, according to just like reading it over, you have, let me get some story stuff out. So you have the base, you have Infernal Core, and then apparently you have Pillar of Architect, and then Gardens at the very top. But here's where it gets confusing. It doesn't say Pillars is in the throne at all. It does for Infernal Core and Gardens, because it's saying that Infernal Core is like the first place we get to, and it's like the main place. And Gardens is at the very top of the throne, because it's like all castles have some form of botanical gardens, because rich people love their gardens. But then you have Pillar of Architect. It doesn't say anywhere that this is truly in the throne. So it's really confusing. But I still believe Pillar of Architect is actually somewhere in the city. Going by the concept art from the city, there's the Nexus District, which below it is the city slums called the Underside. But I believe the Pillar of Architect is actually somewhere else in the city. Either below, above, or like in a region that we don't know about yet.
One of those office buildings.
What?
One of those office buildings.
Yeah. It's really confusing.
You know, I don't know what Akira Corporation does.
What?
You know, you've seen all those signs for Akira Corporation, like Akira building, and I have no idea what they do. That's my idea. I
don't know either, which is really sucks because there's one business that standalone users will never see. I believe they can. It's just not the greatest looking. There's a blacksmith company that you get to see on PC VR, but on standalone you can't see that sign. But there is one company that is the makers of the Essence machine, where you equip your equipment and re-roll your gear. They have their logo on the side of it, but their logo is also elsewhere in the city. And then there's other places. There's a company called Robotics, and I like to think the one that's called Robotics is the company that Lyra worked for, and is the company that did research on us and made the Ether Disk. But there's like almost nothing on the companies, so it's really hard to say. But that's everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yay!
Lore Master Dragon.
Good, thank you.
For just another plugin, I will give the server link for the lore server. There's multiple roles you can choose from. Again, you can choose to either be a gatherable, you can just choose to join, hit the read role, and you can just read the lore, or whenever someone pops out with like a player lore that they did, or a fan lore, you can just read. There's also more people that just like gather the lore role, and if you love correcting people, for the love of God, there is literally a grammar role for you to fix all of my horrible grammar. So if you love to do that, I'll have a god click that roll. Other than that, that wraps up lore lesson number 2. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully that
Thank
feels
you.
a lot better than the first
Thank you.
one.
You're welcome.
All right.
Well, for
Thanks
this
for
one, I'm
doing
gonna
Dragon.
take a break
Everyone,
and
you guys can have a cupcake.
Yeah. My quest is on
And we
level
also for
6%.
Scott, I was gonna do 200 soon. Actually,
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more Zealots content, and remember, it's GG Easy with EZ.